Siobhan Casey, the head of growth for ACS, has had a remarkable career. She's made her mark as an entrepreneur in the fintech, mortgages, logistics and retail industries. She is an advocate for Australia's innovation ecosystem. Few in Australia grasp the significance and transformative power of innovation technology quite like Siobhan does. And Siobhan joins me now. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
First of all, tell us a little bit about the Australia Computer Society. What is ACS? How does it all work?
So we like to call it the ACS. We've shortened it down. Computers are not nouveau anymore. We're 57 years young, a representative body for those individuals in tech in Australia, and that's growing at a rate of knots. And we represent their needs in relation to advocacy with government, development needs, networking, mentoring, pretty much every stage of a person's career in tech. We kind of have an offering.
So why should I become a member of ACS?
Oh, you have to make sure you're in tech. Are you a tech person? Look, it depends. I mean, at every person's career stage, there's something different. We help in high schools. We help teachers with lesson plans for the Curriculum 9 to help them understand how to best teach tech in schools. We help recent graduates with networking, super important to when you establish a career to, I think about 30% of jobs are not advertised. So it's who you know often. So it depends. Professionalism, certification, micro-credentials, fellowships for those that have given their life to the tech industry and want to be rewarded. So cradle to grave.
It is such a big industry now, and I know you're doing so much work. But first of all, what are the ACS Technology and Innovation Hubs?
Yeah, right. So in 2018, as I said, we're a long history as a business. More often than not, you hear about entrepreneurs and tech entrepreneurs and startup spaces. So ACS invested money to support that part of the ecosystem as well. So entrepreneurs is a key part of what we do and how we support them. And we have innovation hubs in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, and where we have team members that help, I suppose, provide business advisory to tech founders to help them to sustainably scale. But in addition to that, from a general membership perspective, we have hubs in every territory and state. So not always about entrepreneurs, particularly just for where members can coalesce, come and meet, events, have a tea and coffee, talk to their branch manager, have a whinge, I don't know, anything you want. We're open. Doors are open. Shop front.
Careful what you wish for there.
That's true.
How do we fare in this space compared to other parts of the world? How are we doing here in Australia?
Oh, it's a really good question. So we've had innovation hubs, going back to the earlier question, pretty much for about 10 years. And in other parts of, America, or England, maybe 15 years. So we're a little bit behind in relation to that. When you look at other kind of key measures, when you look at investment versus, as a part of GDP, we're kind of lagging a little bit behind our counterparts in Japan and the US. So look, we're doing well, but we could do better. Couldn't we all? I mean, that's the challenge. But yes, we need to get our skates on. I think globally we're all trying to attract great talent. So Canada versus Australia would be two markets that many tech founders or tech skilled professionals in the globe think about coming to, in addition to the US and the UK. And we need to have a compelling offering.
I want to ask you about the Digital Pulse Report.
Oh, please do. It's our 9th year.
What is the Digital Pulse Report?
Okay, very, very good. So the ACS has partnered with Deloitte Access Economics for 9 years, this year being our 9th. Traditionally, to be honest, it's actually been a sort of an expose of the tech sector. And year on year, it's, no surprise, we're getting bigger, we're growing. This year, which has been fantastic, we've actually looked at the impact of the government's critical technologies. So some key critical technologies the government wants Australia to invest and develop in for our ability to thrive as a country. And when you look at that as a part of the tech growth in the sector, it shows us numerous things. It shows us particularly that 90% of the workforce will need some form of reskilling by 2030.
Wow.
Yes, that's you and me, young lady.
Wow.
So yeah, that's pretty full on. That's pretty compelling. So, and I'm not trying to be shocking the fact that, your job will be gone. We are talking particularly about reskilling to ensure that you can thrive in your role.
So what skills are most in demand right now?
I knew you were going to ask me that. So it's actually not easily measured at this point in time. We know we need to get more skilled in this area. So at the moment we look at a degree and we look at a job. And both of those have a stack of skills that underpin that experience or training. I'll give you probably a lived example. So an accounts payable clerk today in an accounts department in 5 years will be fully automated. What we know from analysis in certain areas is that 80% of that job is the same as 80% of a cyber analyst. Now, if you go to market today advertising for a cyber analyst with 5 years of experience, you're not going to find one because they just don't exist. So could we look at having an accounts payable clerk, reskilling them for the 20% differential to then have them continue in the business from one role to another, but you're developing your talent and you're securing that resource that is critical to all businesses moving forward. That's the sort of conversation we need to be having, and everyone's role is exposed. So even people in tech, often people hear this and go, oh, the tech people are fine, but the rest of the industry is not fine. Tech workers are particularly exposed. So coding, if you learn a coding language, traditionally you learn a particular language. Now using generative AI, you can use English to translate one code to another code. So even tech workers are requiring some form of reskilling.
Of course, there is a lot of concern about AI taking away particularly white-collar jobs. What does the Digital Pulse report tell us about that specifically?
So let's talk about a number of things. The growth of the industry continues at a very fast rate, 70% faster than the broader workforce. Salaries are on average high because of the lack of balance between demand of talent and supply. We have a lower production of domestically educated students, so a large impost on bringing talent from around the globe to Australia. When you then look at generative AI, advanced analytics, robotics, etc., where that is taking us in the future is quite interesting. Australian businesses have been quite good at adopting sort of cloud technology that's come from the organisation, and then employees get to touch and feel that. What's interesting with generative AI is this is predominantly being used by digital natives, younger people, school kids. And what they will end up doing is coming into the workforce in the next 3 years, thinking that businesses should be adept at using it. And what we're seeing is organisations at the moment are unable to cope with it wholesale and are blocking browsers to open generative AI. If we don't look at how we explore it, don't have policies on how to use it, understand what privacy looks like, then potentially we're going to have some conflict here, because younger demographics, graduates coming into the workforce are going to demand a different way of experiencing that tool.
How do we prepare? What should the Australian government be doing?
Well, you should join ACS. Had to do the plug. Look, it's a complex issue, and there's also already some great work underway. Last week at the New South Wales Parliament, there was a launch of the New South Wales Digital Skills Compact, which is a collaboration of over 30 stakeholders. So New South Wales Government, the large universities, TAFE, the top 10 largest recruiters in Australia, so the largest employers, and of course ACS and other relevant bodies. And what we're collectively doing is saying, how do we solve this gap in Australia, in New South Wales? And through the vehicle of people like ACS who have a national presence, how can we then hopefully amplify that around the country? So it's not just New South Wales, but being the largest state, but also equally what is already working around the state. The country, and what can we do to bring that to this skills compact and obviously scale that. I'm very excited about the fact that everyone's not running off quietly, secretly trying to solve the problem on their own. I think we've all got to the point where actually this is quite an audacious goal, and a wicked challenge, whatever you want to frame it, and only through a collective effort and a sharing of knowledge and ideas will we kind of tackle this.
And how powerful to have that collaboration as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I'm a big advocate of surrounding myself with smarter minds than mine. Definitely not the smartest cat in the book, but absolutely the willingness. Someone asked me, what is the biggest priority right now? I'm like, well, if it isn't solving the tech skills gap in Australia as a tech body, I'm really challenged with what is, because if we don't solve that, the disparity between supply and demand means that we will have bigger losses in industry. This last 12 months, the Digital Pulse identified 3.1 billion in economic loss because we didn't have the right people in the right roles doing that job. Forward projection, 16 billion by 2030. Then you look at that on a global scale. I mean, that's just not something we want to be a part of. We want to be competitive, and it is about economic prosperity for Australia. So, yeah, no, there's a big challenge in front of us, but it's moving in the right direction. Maybe I'm just optimistic. I don't know.
You touched on the skills gap, but what else is there to, let's say, look forward to in 2024? What are some of the highlights for the year ahead?
Yeah, so the Digital Pulse, for us, we advocated for a number of components or changes. So we will take that to the federal budget submissions. Things around a growth in diversity, women in the tech sector. So we're advocating for 500,000 more women by 2030, and people sort of go, wow, where are you going to find them? It's only 1% growth year on year, and that we believe the industry collectively can do that. But what does that take? It takes a different way of thinking. So it takes a consideration about what do women generally need in their career at a particular point? It's flexibility with work. Sometimes it's 20 hours a week, not 40 hours a week. How are we making sure that workplaces are offering key roles that are flexible in hours to accommodate more than the standard 40 hours a week full-time employee? That would be really important. The other part is actually with, as I mentioned before, a large part of our skills gap is solved by our skills migration. A large proportion of those skilled migrants are female participants. How do we ensure that they get the role that fully utilises their skills quickly? It takes on average a year. Now that's totally not it's just inappropriate. What are we doing to help skilled migrants get a job quickly, get them on the tools, get them working and thriving? That's what we need to do.
What have been some of the highlights of the past 12 months?
It's a great question. Look, I think there's been a number of things I'm proud of that ACS has brought together. So the Digital Pulse has been a really formative piece of work, which I'm thrilled about. Some other key pieces, we've actually chosen to look at doing a back longitudinal study at this point in time on 64,000 past skilled migrants, given that is a key vehicle for us to solve our gap. And just to understand, did they stay? Did they get a visa? Did you get a job in tech? And if you did, what were the challenges you faced? That's been really seminal in relation to some of the key findings, and we'll continue to do a data cut every 6 months moving forward. And the other piece we've worked on in collaboration with Settlement Services International is an employer's guide for how to recruit and retain skilled migrants. So again, in my experiences this year, I've met many applicants around the country, and hearing them go for 100 jobs, 50 jobs, never interviewed, having to change their first name, anglicise their first name, so many kind of points of feedback to an individual when they've got potentially 2 degrees, good experience. And it's like, well, maybe we should have a conversation with employers, how to think differently about this cohort of talent and how to bring them into your business. And that's what we've brought together, which I'm really thrilled about. LinkedIn also endorsed that report. So yeah, they're probably the big highlights. Lots to do.
Lots to do. Lovely to see you, Siobhan. Thank you so much for coming in. All the best for 2024.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm back and we'll talk about it again next year.
Let's do it again next year. Same time next year.
Yeah, that's right. See you then.